Okay guys, let's do a video to help everyone understand one of the biggest questions in the game. Which generals do I want? I'm going to do this video to break down each category and figure out who you want to be buying or looking for and who you want to upgrade. Resources are very limited in this game. It seems like there's a ton of resources that are coming in all the time, but when you realize how much it takes to fully upgrade a general and really where those stats are coming to give you an edge over an opponent, you realize how few resources you really have. So you want to be very selective in who you upgrade and who you put your resources. Skill books, runestones, gems, gold, all of that stuff. And of course, general experience. Let's talk about the different categories that you're going to need for a general. The first thing that we're going to look at is we're going to look at your PvP generals. You're going to want a general for each troop type and possibly a fifth general. And then you're also going to want a ground general. So you're going to want an archer general, you're going to want a cav general, you're going to want a ground general, a siege general, possibly range siege, depending on how this meta shapes with the new changes to siege. And then you're also going to want that wall general. So let's start with archer. Archer is going to be your main troop type to attack with. It's a very important troop because it sits back and does its damage without getting hurt. And also its counters are ground and siege, and a lot of people don't build those early game. If they're PvP focused, they'll build archer. If they're growth focused, they'll build calves. Well, all those people that build calves, your archers will counter them. So it's a great general if you want to do a lot of PvPing until you start running into a lot of ground troops. So the best general in the game right now is either Simeon or Alfred or Electra. And this is where I'll distinguish between the two types of generals that I'll go over. This is a premium general. You have to buy, typically you have to buy a package, or there's a few places in the game where you can find premium general packages, but you have to get very lucky to get them. So if you don't buy $100 packs, don't really expect to get these. But this is a premium general, and again, you can see the stats here on the right-hand side are going to always be really high with these guys. They'll have a great main stat, and they'll also have awesome specialties. So Alfred is going to be a very, very good archer general. Your next archer general is going to be Electra, another premium general. She just falls a couple points behind, but it really depends on what dragon you're going with. But she's really top tier with Alfred, and some people prefer her. And then finally, then you start looking at guys like Minamoto. Where's Minamoto? Right there. Minamoto would be your third. He does fall a little bit behind the other two, but he's a fantastic general, and we do get him for free in the packs this month. And then you're also going to get into Guan Ghetto, is also a good one. There's a few others there, like Winfield Scott and whatever, but these are the main ones that you're going to find along the way. These are most likely to find in the packs, or maybe even from the cards that we get in the chests every day. Then there's the free generals that come in the tavern, and most players are going to be looking for these. If you get lucky to get one of these, be happy, and then you can put them, especially Electra, Alfred, or, of course, the new guy, Simeon. How can I forget? This is the one that we're always talking about. Simeon the Great is also an amazing general for both siege and range. So he could be used for actually both at the same time, which can be really effective for attacking points of interest, and also to exploit bases that have weaker siege, to attack them with range and siege at the same time, or also just a great straight range general. So there's your range guys. And then you would get into as well, sorry, he's in China, Li Shimin is your best tavern general. So most players are going to be looking for this guy, and you can build him up, assuming that you'll probably not get one of those amazing, very expensive generals. But Li Shimin's your best one. Number 2 would be Prince Edward behind that, but Li Shimin takes a pretty big edge. He's really, he's close to the premium generals. Next, let's look at calves. Calves are very useful because of their ability to kill bosses. The two very best Cav generals are Martinus. He requires a dragon to unlock the buff. But the cool thing is that you can also add a luck book to him because you can't double stack the attack book on him. So you can add luck, which makes him nice for killing bosses as your main boss killer, and gets you a lot more loot for when you're killing a boss. Hannibal is, when fully topped out, he's the very best one. He has incredibly high HP stats, and he can really also gets really high attack stats. And HP is very important with your general for calves. And then finally, you have the one that a lot of people know of here is Roland. Roland would be kind of third place, just a tiny tier behind those other guys, but he is also fantastic. If you get Roland, build him up, you're going to really not be in a disadvantage at the end game. When it comes to the free general, a pretty clear favorite here is Takata Shingen. You can double up on the attack on him, and he has nice high HP as well. You can see the 9.11, nice high HP. There is also another general that we got for free that I'd like to point out, and he is in China. We got him a couple months ago. Li Jing would be a little bit ahead. He's a little behind in HP, but a little ahead in attack from Takata Shingen. So this guy's also a really good Cav general. A little behind the other top three, but great. Another good one's Barbarossa. Oldie but a goodie. Let's talk about ground now. Ground is a very key troop type in this game. Ground counters archer. So some of your top players that evolve in this game, if they rush their ground general, they can really exploit the top players that have very strong archer generals. They might have a very strong archer general, but if you send ground at them with a good ground general, they're going to get demolished. And it's a great way to get points in early, especially early to mid-level SVS and battlefields, because people think their archers are invincible, and you can absolutely roll them with just better game knowledge and having a good ground general. So a very good ground general is one of the best generals in the game overall is Scipio Africanus. Scipio, I don't know which one it is. He has very strong stats overall, and he's a clear favorite over the free general, but the free general is also very good. Remember, if you ever get one of these great premium generals, those are the ones that you can really start dumping runestones in. But if you know you're never going to get one of those, then choose the free general, and you can put runestones into that one once you get over level 25. And start unlocking those specialties. If you don't, do not spend your runestones on those specialties. It's just way too expensive. They're too hard to get your hands on, and it costs a lot of gems for you to eventually sell that guy. But Scipio is your best choice by far. If you get him, get very excited, because you're going to have a great counter to some of the top players in the game. And then your other guy is Trahan, and this guy you'll find in the tavern. Most people and even top players are still using him. Another oldie but a goodie. He's very strong defense stats, very strong HP stats. He does fall a little bit behind Scipio, but Trahan is also very well-rounded, and that's why I'll still say to some people to hang on to Trahan, even if you get Scipio, because he's so well-rounded, he can be used in a pinch on your wall or in objectives, because his stats are more well-rounded and not just marching and attack stats. And I can't remember exactly how. I think it's actually Trajan is how you say it. I call it Trahan. I don't know. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And then we're going to get into Siege. Siege is a really unique troop type. You're going to lose when you send all Siege, but you can often get and exploit players that don't understand the game mechanics. If you outrange somebody using the range book, the range bonus book, and the range bonus ring, you can get a really nice jump on their Siege. All your Siege will die, but you will kill more of theirs than you will lose. Especially if you're using really high tier Siege, because it also has more range. But you really want to focus on your attack value when it comes to Siege. and how much attack you can pile on to the enemy siege, because it actually shoots all the way over the battlefield into the enemy siege and starts targeting them. So if you find somebody without the range bonuses, you can exploit that if you have this siege general. But it's something that's more of a niche play, and it's something that's very expensive because you're going to have to heal all of your siege with gems and materials or resources. So be very careful with this play. But one of my favorites is actually Grant. One of the reasons Grant is great is because if you get Grant early on, he becomes also a fantastic cav general because his cav attack stats are going to be very, very high. But he can also work with cav and siege in the rare cases where you can send mostly cav with a chunk of siege. It can be a very effective attack, again, especially if your opponent has weak siege. So you can add some siege in and you get that bonus from Grant where you still have a very strong cav attack. I wouldn't get in the habit of sending it every time because most of the time you're going to want to focus your calves to get the most out of them. But in some cases, adding some siege into your attack can really benefit from it. But when you get to later game and you get one of those better cav generals like Hannibal or Martinus, you can switch him over to purely cav or purely siege. And he is a very, very strong siege general, gets the most out of the attack. Then your next guy, and again, that's your premium, but your next guy is going to be Napoleon. And I think he's in Europe. A lot of players really like Napoleon. He gets a little bit more of a march size buff, but gets really great attack. He's a big deal. Simeon, I think, is also going to be really good for siege, the archer guy. Alfred can be used, but believe it or not, what's better than Alfred are the two tavern generals. One of the, again, oldies but goodies is going to be, where is he? He's in here too. Gus. Gus is very good. A lot of people think this is a sub-general, but he's not a very good sub-general because he's only debuffing defense for siege and range. That's, not a very useful stat to debuff. It's not a very useful stat in the game at all. But what he does do is he buffs range and siege, and his specialties also buff siege. So maxing him out, you can get really high siege stats with him. Another good guy is Wallace. I think it's actually it's a hair difference between the two. But enemy wounded into death when attacking is kind of a nice stat, especially going into like SVSs and stuff if you're going to siege bomb somebody. However, I'm not sure how that does affect siege because siege always does die. But he's a very good siege general for free. But those are your main four there. Khaled also works, but I think Wallace is far better. Khaled also works for calves if you get him for free. Where is he here? Khaled's not a bad guy to find for siege or calves, and he can even work on your wall early game if you want to run a cav, mostly offense to begin with. Now, the next group, we've now gone through all of the main four PvP types, and we even talked a little bit about Archer Siege, which is kind of a nuanced play, and even a little bit about Cav Siege. But now we get into the Wall General. Wall General is always like kind of the number one or the number two, depending on your playstyle. You're more of an attacker or more of a defender. You're always going to need to be somewhat a defender. Because your defense is very strong, and you'll want all four troop types for that. And ultimately, you're going to want to buff archer attack, siege attack. You want to buff your ranges on those, and then you're going to want to buff your defense and HP on your calves and your ground. The best general in the game for the ground by far, where is he here, is Joseph E. Johnson. For your wall. This is your best wall general in the game right now. Nobody really compares. He actually matches the stats of Kiet and Dao on range and siege. So Dao is focused on siege. Kiet is focused on range. Johnson matches both of those at the same time and also gives a little extra buff to mounted. but has great base stats all around. Just very, very good wall general. So he's who you want. Another general that is a premium general is, let's give it a shot here. Kusunoki Masasaji. What? Yeah, we'll go with that. I'm not even going to try that again. He actually has really good stats. He's a little bit better than Kiet everywhere and much better when it comes to your calves. But he also has a pretty strong archer, believe it or not. So he is a very good general. And then there is also is he Japanese? He's Chinese. The Yu Sun, or is he Korean? There it is. Yi Sun Sin. He is also a really strong general, very well rounded. So those are your top premium generals that you can put on your wall. And then the two free premium generals that you'd really want to look for is Lai Kiet, and Dao. More siege focused, more range focused. Believe it or not, even though he has ground buffs, the base stats on Kiet make him just slightly stronger in most areas of ground. So again, base stats make a huge difference in a general. Make sure you're looking at those. So those are your free generals, and then we talked about the three premium generals. This is getting a little bit longer, but I know that this is a commonly talked about subject. So what are the other generals that you're going to look for, especially going through the tavern? The next step when we're talking about the actual gameplay, not just growth, we're going to want your sub-generals. Now, there's going to be a few generals in general that you just want to buy from the tavern that are going to fill up your art hall because you're going to get, or your general hall because you're going to get extra buffs from those. And those are sometimes the generals that will buff, like Martel. Charles Martel buffs your construction speed, your troop training, and your subordinate cities. This isn't really what you want your subordinate cities, though. So you're going to buy him just for the hall, but what you're really going to do is you're just going to sell him, and you're going to try to find sub-generals that give debuffs to the enemy, because none of their main stats will carry through, but all of the debuffs will actually debuff the enemy. And debuffs are very, very, very important. And the key debuffs that you want to look for are just straight HP or straight attack, or archer attack is very important, and siege attack is very important. So that makes your premium generals of Arminius, Senat the Great, and also, where is he? Harold. Harold is a big one. These are the main premium ones that you're going to find. Harold does both HP and attack to all troops, and it's 10%. And then you've got Arminius and Senat, which are great. He has great siege and range debuffs, plus ground and mounted troops HP. Fantastic if you can get like subs full of these guys. But the free ones, there's some actually very, very good free ones. The main one that you're going to want to look for is Andrew Jackson. Again, debuffs archer and debuffs mounted troop HP. Very huge debuff. The other one that you can look for is Narrow. He debuffs HP by 15% across all troops. And then if you're more archer focused, you usually want to debuff your counter, which is ground. So that's where Sixie comes in. Where's that ugly, ugly old lady? Sixie is... Oh, I think she's over here. There she is. So she debuffs defense, which is a huge debuff to your ground troops. Some of the other ones would be, let's see, is he here? Mansa Musa. He actually increases as well as the enemy attack across all troops, which is very good. He does death to survival rate in the subcity, which is great because once your troops are dead in that subcity, if you've done a couple of tracks and your troops are dead, then you don't get the debuff. So as long as you have troops alive, and that skill will help you keep troops alive. And Yeah, that's about it. There's some other ones that are a little lower on the scale, but we can talk about those ones as they come up. But now you have the understanding of what's really important when it comes to a subgeneral. Now, finally, we're going to talk about your growth aspects. And there's three aspects of growth. One is just your troop load. This is not for gathering. This is for attacking an enemy base. He increases your troop load by 100%. You can add troop load skill books to Amir, and you can also add gear that buffs troop load. Then when you're attacking your alt or you're attacking to another base and you've cleared their troops and you're trying to get as much RSS from them as possible, you're going to send him, and he's going to double the amount of RSS that you can take on each attack. This is a huge benefit and speeds up your gameplay a lot. Like I said, even just as a convenience for when you're clearing out your alt, so you're vulnerable for less period of time. So that's an easy one. You want one of him. Then you're going to want 5 of rally gens, and then you're going to want 5 gathering gens. So let's talk about gathering gens first. The main one that you're looking for is you want 5 Queen Jindioks. She brings back an extra 40% of resources from a tile when you go to the world, and even from the alliance tile. This is really strong. She takes back 20% from the alliance tile, so that's really cool. And then she has really high politics for very, very fast gathering speeds. So you can actually cultivate those up to get more bonus from that. Then you have, for your free ones, these are all free, but for your purple generals, there's actually some purple generals that work, especially if you're looking from for your alts. They just added some new ones to the game besides the one that we all know and get at the beginning, Lucy. She is good, but you're going to want to upgrade that. I prefer getting a gathering buff from going from the world tiles, because then you're not going to have to watch them like a hawk. They'll just come back with more resources. So Constance is a new one. The Japanese guy here, Shimazu Yoshihiro, he's great for food, but he also is pretty good for all troop type, all RSS types. So I think he's better than Lucy. And there's a couple other ones. So if you look through, you can get an idea of what brings you the gathering. But that's a really, really important thing to have in your game. And then we're going to get into your rally gens. And rally gens, the main one, there's 2 that you're going to want to look for. Everyone runs out of stamina unless you really coin big. So this guy here is really kind of like not as well known, but he gives you a 25% reduction of your stamina cost. What you're trying to do is turn your stamina into as much resources as you possibly can. And I cannot stress how important increasing the amount that you can get from each boss. It is the best place to get growth in the game, is by running bosses. It is what increases your activity in the game. So that's why the developers are going to give you the most in this guy. So what you want to do is you want to put a luck book on him and a ring, and then you can put your march speeds on him, and he will give you a ton of value. He's the best value for stamina in the game. But you also want to get time over stamina, so that's going to be Baybars. And Baybars or Baybars. This guy here, he gives you a 25% drop. These are your gold generals that are great to get. You can also use other generals like Huo Kobin for march speed, and you can add march speed books to him, and then you can get back and forwards really quickly as long as you have a luck book. But I much prefer the other 2 for getting more value out of your stamina. And then the final one is the one that most people are going to run because she's very easy to get. If you do not have 5 of these early game, get your tavern up as high as you can. It doesn't take long to get to tavern 25. And run through the tavern until you find 5 of these Cleos. Along the way, you're probably going to find other generals that are on that list that we're talking about. If you're lucky, you'll come across Nathaniel Green or Baybars, but you have to have 5 of these generals or you're just throwing your resources away. And your growth is going to be stunted by 20 to 50%. You want to get rings on these guys and you want to get your luck books. So she gives you 20%. The 5% upgrade to buy bars is very nice because you're going to get that extra 5%, but Cleopatra will do the job just fine. There's one final grouping, and that is your specific duty generals, and none of them are free, but we do get them sometimes through packs. I'm not going to spend too much time, but for example, Skanderbeg goes onto the hospital and specifically increases your hospital capacity above and beyond what the actual duty general's buff does. So you can use any general to buff your duty, and any of the keep, the academy, or the rally spot at a certain level, or archer tower, you can buff that with any general as long as you increase the stats enough in the correct areas, the correct 2 areas. But these specific generals add an extra buff. So some of the best ones for that, Skanderbeg's a really good one because having 25% extra hospital is very important. But also, where is he? Is it Japan? Where's Ban Chao? Ban Chao, where are you? There he is. Ban Chao gives you a 20% mounted troop attack debuff and increases your archer's defense by 20%, or archer's attack on defense by 20%. That's huge. Also, he's specific to that archer tower. So when he goes into your archer tower, he's going to give you those extra buffs. Another really, really good one is going to be Askia Muhammad. He goes in your trap factory and gives you a 25% buff on siege, in city siege machines attack. So look for these guys. They come up in the packs, but we also get lucky by getting through the chest where you get the. So if we go back here, we can get some of those premium generals through this, which is really cool. Sometimes you just get the entire pack of him or her, or we get the fragments and they add up. So you can get John of Portugal and increase your ability of training archers, or you could get Ulysses Grant through this. And it's a really good way that the game has balanced the spending in this game, so that some of us plebs that don't like to spend $100 to get that pack, plus all the extra packs you have to buy to get there, well, we get a chance of getting some of these premium generals that really give you a nice advantage in the game for free. So keep an eye on those. It's a good way to get them, and hopefully this video helps. I know it's a long time, but I'll try to break it down in the comments or the message below to show you where each step is of what you're looking for. All right, thanks, bye.